Every other theory, every other explanation is accepted except for the obvious one. And that's where Tom is. He's buried his head in the sand. He's being pig-headed about it. He's towing the company line on it for whatever reason. I don't understand why it's the company line.
Marvel Comics fans say, hey, we would actually like Peter Parker and MJ together. And once again, Marvel, specifically Tom Brevoort, are gaslighting people saying, no, that's not what you really wanted.
Seems to be about par for the course with Marvel these days. We tell them what they want. They tell us, no, we're wrong. And then we rinse, repeat. 5 years later, we're still not getting anything close to what we want. They make excuses after excuse for why we're wrong and they are somehow right.
Why is this the hill that they must die on?
Pure and simple ego. They don't want to admit that they made a mistake or that they made a wrong decision. It's been 20 years. They could say, oh, we're going to go back to that. It has nothing to do with us making a bad decision. We didn't make a bad decision. We got 20 years of stories out of it. They can spin it to make it so that they didn't make a mistake or make the argument that it was never the wrong decision to do it in the first place. But because the readers will claim they're admitting they made a mistake and they're going back on it, they won't do it. And they don't want to put themselves in a position where anybody could even make a valid argument that they backtrack.
So this is coming out of Tom Brevoort's Man with the Hat Substack. Asked as to his thoughts on the recurring idea that the success of the new Ultimate Spider-Man with a married Peter Parker is an indication that the regular 616 Peter's marriage to MJ should be reinstated and that it is a fault of the editors over there for not recognizing that and thus reaping similar sales success. The Marvel Comics editor responded with the firm declaration, yeah, I've been hearing from a couple of yahoos whose idea of a good time is to send us the same letter about MJ and Paul every single day. But here's the thing. I think the point of view that you're talking about is simply incorrect. This did happen 20 years ago, Doc. The fans have never changed their tune. They still hate it.
Yeah. I mean,
how can that be incorrect?
Yeah, exactly. It's still the exact same people. The same 60, 80, 100,000 people that were reading ASM that said this is a bad decision at the time are still saying it's a bad decision and they need to go back. Whether they're still reading or not is a different question. They have had 400 issues to change our minds and they haven't. That should tell them, hey, we're not going to change their minds. At this point, it's a question of whether they continue reading or not, but we're not going to change their minds because we've, in 400 issues, haven't managed to do it yet.
And they keep writing themselves into like corners. Well, we want people to stop asking about Peter and MJ, so we'll put in Paul, a character that's basically universally despised. And now people just have more stuff to be mad about. They never fix anything.
They just keep doubling, tripling, quadrupling down. Every time they have an opportunity to try to change our minds, they fail miserably. Marvel, for 60 years, has had this ego where they think they can be the tastemaker for their own product. If they market it just right, they can get us to buy anything. And that's not the case. But they refuse to give up on this idea.
Brevoort then went on to really explain his stance on it. First off, the difference in sales between Ultimate Spider-Man and Amazing Spider-Man is relatively slim. It's not like the Ultimate is doing twice or three times the business or anything. And secondly, I don't think that the success of Ultimate at the moment is just down to Peter and MJ being married within it. I think it has a lot to do with the quality of the work that Jonathan Hickman and Marco Cicchetto are producing. So I get that people want Peter and MJ back together, are of course going to point to that series. But the truth is that it doesn't really make a convincing argument to me at all. I've been around this particular sort of block too many times over the years to mistake the signals, basically pointing out and saying, well, that just has better creative on there. Well, then why did you put Zeb Wells in the book to begin with if you knew that he sucked compared to Jonathan Hickman, who isn't exactly blowing out of the water in Ultimate Spider-Man? Ultimate Spider-Man is a perfectly fine book. It's very well illustrated. And one of the things that makes it more bearable than some of the other really boring books out there is because, in fact, Peter and MJ are together, and it's something that you wanted. He's insane.
Jonathan Hickman, the luster that his name had on it died with his run as the head of X. He doesn't have that draw anymore. We've seen it with all the rest of his little side projects that he's done at Marvel over the last few years. None of them really have a draw. Ultimate Spider-Man is the exception, not because of Jonathan Hickman, but because it's Spider-Man. And it's a Spider-Man.
Well, and the idea that he would set the benchmark that if people really wanted Peter and MJ together, and that's why they were supporting the book, it would have to sell 2 or 3 times more every single month that it came out than Amazing Spider-Man is insane. Amazing Spider-Man has been around for almost 1,000 issues, over 60 years at this point. Ultimate Spider-Man is a new title. It's only been around for 2 years.
They have to understand that Amazing Spider-Man has people that don't read the book. They just buy it because they're completists. And they have to factor that in. When's the last time you heard anybody talking about Amazing Spider-Man on a month-to-month basis? When's the last time you heard about people talking about Ultimate Spider-Man? People talk about Ultimate Spider-Man and what's going on in the book. They don't talk about ASM.
Well, they do talk about it, but they talk about how much they hate it.
But even then, they still don't talk about it much. There's not much conversation about it. And the little bit of conversation that is about it is how stupid this is. Whereas Ultimate Spider-Man has a lot more buzz about it. If they're not factoring in completists that just buy, bag, and file ASM at this point, they're smoking crack and they're willfully disregarding something that everybody acknowledges is the case.
Tom Brevoort knows this. He is a senior editor at Marvel Comics. He's been at Marvel Comics, I believe, since the late 80s, early 90s.
Yep.
He's been there a very, very long time. He knows what the Amazing Spider-Man fan base is. This is him simply gaslighting because he doesn't want to admit a decision that he didn't personally make and probably wasn't even involved in was a bad decision, and that there is a better way ahead for Spider-Man, for Peter Parker, to make him more relevant today than he is.
Tom is doing exactly what people that are stubborn and pig-headed do when presented with a lot of evidence. They cherry pick their own data and then bury their head in the sand. Well, yeah, Ultimate Spider-Man sells more, but not enough. Yeah, well, it's the creative team. Yeah, it's everything except for the thing that's right in front of us. It reminds me of listening to fucking COVID excuses. Everything except for, hey, there's a lab right there that was experimenting on this exact thing. I wonder if that had something to fucking do with it. Every other excuse, every other theory, every other explanation is accepted except for the obvious one. And that's where Tom is. He's buried his head in the sand. He's being pig-headed about it. He's towing the company line on it for whatever reason. I don't understand why it's the company line, except for maybe Disney just decided, hey, look, this is our status quo. And if that was the case, he should probably just come out and be like, hey, look, corporate says no. At least then we would accept why. But instead, he will offer the most asinine, cherry-picked, twisted, spin-doctored bullshit for why something very, very obvious isn't being done. And all it comes off as is, I'm old, I don't like you, I don't like the readers, so if they want this, I'm going to refuse to give it to them. It sounds like spite.
And definitely shout out to Bounding Into Comic Books, who kind of put some of this stuff together and kind of looked at some of the numbers. For publicly available sales information provided by comic book retailers news outlet ICV2, while the Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 3 does outsell Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, it does not completely blow away its Earth 616 counterpart. However, this competition really only pertains to individual issues. Conversely, when looking at the monthly top 20 graphic novel sales chart compiled since September 2024, released the first Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 3 trade paperback, appropriately titled Married with Children, has consistently ranked as one of the top 3 best-selling books across the industry, while absolutely 0 Amazing Spider-Man collections have been placed. And what's interesting is we know that the graphic novel sales data incorporates essentially over 90% of all actual sales to customers in North America, whereas the ICV2 data is a very small subset of about, I think 120 shops across North America. So one of them is very reliable. The other one is much less reliable, but also it shows that people that are reading it, that want to read the story, because that's what you get a graphic novel for, are far more likely to actually buy Ultimate Spider-Man with the married version of Peter Parker and Mary Jane.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, the graphic novel market is the reader market. You can see the people that are actually buying and reading the book are absolutely to a T buying Ultimate Spider-Man. They're not even looking at Amazing Spider-Man. Nobody that's actually reading comics is caring about Amazing Spider-Man. Yes, you'll get your sales on your monthly book with all your variant gimmicks, your reboots, your event tie-ins, all that shit, and all your completionists that just buy, bag, and store the comic and haven't actually cracked open an issue of ASM in 10 to 30 years. All those people, yeah, you get them in the direct market, but that's just telling you that it sells through them. It tells you nobody's actually reading it.
Obviously, Tom has noticed that the people that are upset about this are not going away. They've been ever present ever since they made the decision. He loathes the fact that they're still pushing back against it and still denies that it's a problem, but it's not going to go away. And I don't think that making Peter Parker and MJ get back together or married is a fix-all for Amazing Spider-Man.
No.
Clearly, they need better creative. Zeb Wells was not the answer. Whatever it is that Joe Kelly and Justina Ireland are doing right now with 8 Deaths of Spider-Man is not the answer. But Peter Parker and MJ not being together for no reason whatsoever is an impediment for some people, even if it was good. And they can't even acknowledge that.
At this point, I'm pretty sure at least Marvel Comics, if not Disney, are just waiting for all the people that complain about it to die. That's the only way that this problem is ever going away. We either die or we stop caring at all, and they stop getting any of our money. Honestly, I think for somebody like Tom Brevoort, who's at the end of his career, he's got a couple more years before he can retire. At this point, he is perfectly fine to just give the middle finger to everybody because he doesn't care. He's absolutely secure in his job. Nobody's going to fire him. And he's a miserable old bastard that is just going to stick with what he wants to do. Fuck everybody else. Fuck the reader. Fuck the customer. Fuck the store. Fuck the sales numbers. This is what we're getting, and you're going to fucking like it, bitch. That is the message to take from Tom on this. And honestly, we probably should by telling them to go fuck themselves too. So all of you ASM readers, or buyers rather, because there aren't any ASM readers, ASM buyers out there, you know what? It was a good run. I know you want to hold out until issue 1000, but fuck them.
One thing's for certain, people are not going to give up because it's been over 20 years, but they are going to continue on this path to irrelevance for some reason with Spider-Man. If you like the entire conversation between Doc and I, we did go about 25 minutes on this bad boy. We did have to edit it down here for the YouTubes. You do need to go over to the Thinking Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. The Doc Unfiltered podcast, where you get this entire conversation, as well as our conversation regarding where all the Marvel A-list talent went and why they won't come back. Really interesting stuff. Hope to see you there very soon.